Hello there.
What is up, Static Gamers? It is Kogaji Mente I here today. So this isn't my typical video. This is something I wanted to talk about, considering Halo Infinite is coming out. You know, I tried recording this multiple times in different formats, ways, but I think I figured out finally how I want to talk about Halo Infinite, and essentially my expectations. So, back in the past, in previous Halos, I did a lot of things. I did a clan, I did machinimas, and I did all sorts of things like this. You know, it's what I did mainly in Halo Reach was clans and machinimas in Halo Reach. Actually, I'd say I did machinimas more than I did clan. Clan was more of Halo 3 for me, but I did run it in Halo Reach and did quite valiant with that. But this is not really about the past, but it kind of does tie into the past for me. There's some things that I'm worried about with Halo Infinite's release, and that's just typically how it's going to cater to me specifically. As much as I like the newer styles and whatnot, I'm stoked and excited for the return of Elites and Elites, you know, designs and some of the classic more designs. That stuff really appeals to me as I've seen it so far. But there's one thing that really concerns me. And this is my perspective as not only as a clan leader at once, but also as a machinima director. And this kind of ports more to the machinima side of things, but it's the return of Elites and how well theater mode works, for God's sakes. I mean, they kind of fixed it, but it was still, you know, a little buggy as hell. Like, you know, obviously, like with every other Halo fan, I expect, you know, every game mode that has ever been existed onto Halo, and for machinima it's very most important. But in particular, I want to look at Forge, and there's some things bother me about Forge, and then there's things about that are in the game that should be in the game. The first, flat out, is Elites. That's like the number one thing I want to talk about when going to the machinima community is Elites. It's like the number one thing for machinima making. More so than Spartans. While it's cool, you can do Spartans, a lot of people like to pit things against things. And when you only have Spartans, you can only say Faction A is fighting Faction B. And the type of machinimas that I see in current Halo are machinimas where there's Rogue Faction versus Unity Faction, or Oni Faction versus Unity Faction, or just Faction versus Faction. There's nothing unique anymore because Elites have been removed. See, back in the day when there was like infected machinimas, Elites were often seen as the infected group. Occasionally you would see Spartans in the group. There were some machinimas I think did really well. There was one off the top of my head I can't remember right now that did really well, and it used Elites as like muscle infected and really like tanks. And you can't do things like that now because, you know, all you have is Spartans. They're of the same size. You can't use Elites to show perspective, or you can't use Elites for that matter to do Unity versus Covenant, which is like the iconic thing for Halo is Unity versus Covenant. And that was, I know so many machinimas based off that alone. And you can't make those machinimas anymore because Elites are gone. Like, it destroys that aspect of machinima. Now, things like comedy machinimas, and like I said, faction versus faction machinimas, or machinimas that try to do other things other than that, you know, they're wide and spread. You can really search for them. There's this one machinima I found in Halo 4 where it was about one faction only, and within it there was a guy who was questioning why they were to be kept locked. And, you know, he goes rebellious, and the commanders try to exit, and then in the end, the dude ends up showing, you know, him a hologram of what the outside looks like. They go out for a little bit, and he's like, you see, this is why the weather's harsh. And he's like, this is why we must remain inside. And then he walks back in, and the guy stays outside. And then you find out that it's been a simulation this whole time. They're faking their containment. And that was a very unique machinima for Halo 4. If I could remember the name of that machinima, I will put it in the description down below, because it is a really good Halo 4 machinima. And at the time, it did not have a lot of views. It deserved it. Yeah, but you don't get unique machinimas like that anymore. The last machinima that I can recall that wasn't from any other, you know, current Halos that have been popular were things like Rise of Spartans and Red vs. Blue. And it worked fine in Red vs. Blue because, you know, they didn't target elites in the first place, but two, even when they did, it was temporary or something like that. It was nothing crazy, and they were very creative. You know, if you have very creative minds, you know, it's not a problem. But if you're people like me who want to make lore of their own behind certain factions, like me specifically, I'm going to talk about players like me who love to be an elite, and they want nothing more than elites in the game, just to play as an elite. You know, there's that factor for us. But, you know, for players like me, who are also machinima directors, who love elites, want to make machinimas about elites. There's not many of those out there, as a matter of fact, even when the elites were in the game. I would have been one of the far and the few who wanted to do that. You see, my original machinima was on Halo Stories, my other channel. If you're a friend of mine who knows me personally, you probably are aware of this other channel. As a matter of fact, I did release a machinima a couple months back from Halo 5 called Missing Point, which was a joke about stormtroopers. I could do stormtroopers because Spartans look like stormtroopers when they wear EOD and they're white. But I couldn't do an alien, for example, in the Star Wars universe because I don't have elites. You know what I'm saying? There's another example of why I think elites should return. There's a lot of reasons, alright, that elites should return. And my computer's starting to freak out, and that's worrying me. I'll exit that out and see if that fixes it. Just got rid of my background. It's a little bit better. There we go, it equalizes. Anyway, there's those reasons why I'm worried about Infinite, or Elite's going to return. You see, this entire time, since Halo, let's say since I tried to start my clan back up in Halo 5, that would have been almost nearly the beginning of Halo 5. You know, I started what would be called the third generation of my clan. Anywho, we're based around elites, first of all. So without elites, that's goodbye. And second of all, I've always just enjoyed being a machinima director, more than I would say I've been a clan leader, just because I love putting my creative views into things. And I literally sat down over the years and developed a lore, my own lore, to why certain things were in the Halo universe. That's just what the mind of a machinima maker will do. And sometimes, some of those lores I made are completely separate from the Halo universe, but I like to stay within the realm of the Halo universe, which means Human Covenant War. I can't do Covenant because there's no elites. So my lore follows the Halo storyline. As a matter of fact, it technically starts at 2500, year 2500, but the machinima itself starts at 2520. And as a matter of fact, since Infinite's announcement, I started trying to remake a script to rewrite that machinima I had once did. I had pretty much thrown it away, and I might upload this to both my channels because I want them to know I'm a bit of a debate, you know, here. The thing is, I'm not gone with machinima making. I would like to come back, but all the creative visions I have usually revolve around elites in some shape or form, even if I could do a human-focused machinima, to which I did. You see, as I said, my machinima started about the, you know, Human Covenant War, so I made a perspective of the machinima where when Unicy Spirit of Fire fled, the Unicy Oni found that as a problem and sent an unknown colony to an unknown region in the void of space beyond human territory to colonize said planet that was discovered and basically separated from the universe. And the lore behind it is that the Covenant was bigger than what we actually saw, and that this planet and the fleet there was preventing the true force of the Covenant from entering our universe, and what we saw is what we got, but the rest was held off by this. That was like my little lore. And you go through different characters, like I go deep into the Unicy character, and for the most part it's through the perspective of a Spartan, but the elites play a crucial role in this as well, because I go over the betrayal of the elites as well. And, like, I follow the Halo timeline. And about Halo 3, you know, they had the same way the Arbiter and whatever his name, Lord Hood, you know, talked to each other. They were talking the same way. They became friends. Alan actually makes it back to Earth after a period of time, but he ends up dying, And then comes Halo 4. I even have lore for Halo 4 because elites weren't in it. I wanted elites to be in it so bad. There was a character in the previous one called Hanyo who was supposed to return in Halo 4, but because elites weren't added, I had to remove that. What basically ends up happening is this time an actual rogue faction appeared, and they fight the branch of the Unit C that's kind of falling apart. The characters eventually were allowed to return to Earth, and blah 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 blah. And some of old characters got to re-meet in their older age. And then even in Halo 5, I have lore for it. And Halo 5 starts what's called the Mind of the Insane arc. That's when Halo 5 takes place. A little bit late Halo 4 to Halo 5. Mind of the Insane takes place. And this is where Alistair becomes into the picture, whose Alistair character started back in the Human Covenant War, who was left to die, and then his views of the world changed. And he's not wrong, but nobody believes him, so he goes crazy because of that. And then the craziness gets worse and worse and worse as he thinks about his team. So basically what stemmed from mental shock turned into insanity, and now he doesn't know what to think. Though he's not wrong, he's also wrong, if that makes sense. From his perspective, he's crazy. And his key words, his key stuff is like, did I tell you the definition of insanity? And all this just cool stuff from there. And I was managed to make that machinima, and it's on Halo Stories. If you want to watch it, you can. I never finished it because I got upset as I continued to make it, and I was like, I'm getting better at machinima making at the same time, but then I'm like, dude, I can't add elites in. I mean, I can't continue the story after this. Halo 5 comes around, which again is Mind of the Insane still. I tried to come up with some lore as to why elites aren't there. They're still there, they're still helping, but they're just off to the side. It's kind of frustrating because I want my creative side to come in, and I want to pull elites in, and part of me for Halo Infinite wants to even try to pull Prometheans in. But the likelihood of elites being in Infinite and Prometheans are so slim, I think it would be really cool if we could play as a Promethean soldier at least. And even if it's just custom games, And there's also a lot of things I'm worried about. Other than that is like theater mode. Is it going to work? And second of all, are they going to make it hard to do machinimas? While in Halo 5, traditional practicing works. I'm not a machinima director that has the capability of getting people on at the same time every time a week very easily. Usually one person is, the other person isn't, next week it's the other way around. That's usually how it goes for me. So when I get the opportunity to have people in a group, I usually have to teach them right then and there and walk them through it at the same time. Be like, okay, now turn left, now walk forwards. And if they do it wrong, we repeat. That's kind of how I taught people. When I used to do it the other way around, I remember doing it all in one session. It would take like 8 hours to do, like a single perfect scene perfectly. That was when I was trying to do a machinima called The Undying, which unfortunately I ended up scrapping because the need for an instrumental amount of people. I was dealing with 16-player lobbies just about every single session, and a lot of those people had a hard time listening to certain things, so I eventually just dropped that just because it was getting harder and harder and harder to do. And I did manage to get an episode out, but I ended up deleting that episode because I wasn't going to finish it, and it had some copyrighted material. I didn't want to be copyrighted anymore. So there was that, YouTube issues. But again, it had elites in. As a matter of fact, the elites not only were represented as big infected, they were also a faction fighting alongside the UNSC to make reason why the elites are the muscle in those infected, where they show up from. I had lore behind this as well, and guess what? It had elites in it, and now I can't do that because there's no elites. Now granted, this was done in Halo Reach, so if I went back to Halo Reach to finish it, I very well could. It was all made in Halo Reach. The maps were done and everything. I could have easily finished it if I really, really wanted to, but not many people play Halo Reach anymore, so that's the problem. I can't go back to Halo Reach, and God forbid MCC, because MCC's theater mode, while it's there, it is complicated to use with. Lowering weapons in Halo 2 Anniversary is complicated. Even though I know how to, it doesn't always work for me. And Halo 5's lowering weapons I actually think works better, but again, theater mode's broke. Second of all, in Infinite, it would be really cool if they allowed us to do things like panning cameras. I actually had an idea for Halo Infinite's Forge and theater mode, where you could use triggered events, where you could make a dummy AI walk from point A to point B, so that way you don't need, let's say your main characters, there's only 3 main characters in the scene, but there's tons of people supposed to be walking in the background because it's a city. You could put dummy AIs who are scripted to walk back and forth between your 2 points that you set. And you can set it up like alpha channel. You'd be like alpha channel to alpha channel, and the AI will walk in a straight path to that alpha channel. And it would depend, whether that AI walks through walls or not is up to you. I mean, you could make that happen if you really wanted to. But it's like a very simple version of scripting AI to do simple things. You could even have them be in a warthog and drive a warthog to point A to point B, and you could even go point C. Like, for example, this is how I would see it. You would set walk path alpha, and put path 1. Then you go to the other one and put walk path alpha 2, and then walk path alpha 3, for example. So it'll drive to point A, turn, and go to point B, etc., etc. Like, the AI would recognize it like that. And you could do little cool things. You could even make the AI, for instance, just sit there and shoot. It'd be really handy if you got a scene where you have like 10 characters in a trench, but you need fire coming back. There was one way to do it, where you just had people stand in the back and just shoot. Well, why have someone do that when you can have a dummy AI do that? Just constantly shoot in one direction. It would be really nice if we had that. That is wishful thinking. For now, I just want elites back in a working theater mode, and if they really want to emphasize on machinimas, alright, if they really want to emphasize on machinimas, I would love it if they gave us better camera options for filmmaking. Like, they could have their default, theater mode for just simple gameplay, but then, what if people want to make montages and they want to have specific camera angles that you couldn't do with normal movements? Like, for example, what if you wanted the camera faced on the driver of the warthog from the front of the hood, zooming in, and you only really see the driver and not anything else? You can't do that without super and perfectly timed movements, especially if that warthog's on the move, doing turns and swerves. It's going to be almost impossible to do that. It would be amazing if you could set up a panning camera, kind of like you can with the intro of Forge or maps in Halo 5, except in this case you're setting it up for theater mode. That would be a really cool concept if they could do that, so that way instead of playing the perspective of the player or the third person view of the player or the free camera, you're actually seeing it from a moving camera that follows your character that you set to do that. That'd be really cool if you could do that. It'd be a little bit of animated work, but it would still be amazing. But as far as what I actually want them to do is, if that's an optional, that they don't have to do that, but if they do that, I'd love it. But as far as I want theater mode that works, and what happens in game is what it actually records. And even same thing for gameplay, because there's times where your reticle is off when it's not, and even in now when they've partially fixed it, it still does that. One of the issues I hate is when sometimes you're walking slow with a character and their leg starts twitching out. Some of the player models base, little things like that I've noticed when doing machinimas and Mighty the Insane, and I had to do many reshoots because of that. It happened a lot. And again, elites, like, if they were in the game, I would hope they were not this buggy as well, and I hope they look cool, and for machinima's sake, please allow the same amount of customizations the Spartans get for elites. I miss being able in Halo 3 to customize the individual shoulders of the elites. Now, I know in Halo Reach they did it due to lore reason, but in Halo Reach at least you had 8 to 9, I think it was 8 to 9 if you had the officer, different dress options for elites. And because I like to be lore friendly, it didn't bother me. But what if there was a time I wanted, the flight armor back? I can't do that in Reach. It's Halo 3 I could, but in Reach I can't, It's things for 343 to think about, like the customizations, the theater mode, the custom games. As far as the machinima direct goes, everything you do that helps everyone else will affect the machinima community. And in Halo 5, everything's so cut, bone, and dry that really makes it hard to do Halo 5 machinimas. And even with Forges in the map, wow, Forge is more amazing. What if you just need to make a quick map for simple scene? Now you can't do that because Forge takes forever. There's no simple version to it. Building blocks are gone, for example. Well, they're still there, but their 1x1s and things like that. Like, say, if you wanted the sniper tower from Halo Reach or Halo 4, you have to forge it yourself. There's no pre-built buildings for you to use with cool, awesome designs that you could use. That's something that I really miss. If one thing for Forge that I would back in Halo Infinite, just to improve on what they have, is bring back pre-built buildings. You know, things that you won't get anywhere else. I mean, they kind of did that with the miscellaneous. I mean, we had the Phantom, we had the Pelican. Those were really cool. We had some Covenant Forge pieces that were pre-built for us. Were really cool. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that we need pieces that for people who just don't know how to forge, you know, to just slap things together, because there wasn't a lot of that in Halo 5. A lot of it was scattered pieces and a complex forge mechanic, and a lot of people I know had quit forging because they couldn't figure it out. So a simplified version of Forge would be not only handy for those people, but people who make machinimas and just need to make a quick scene or something, instead of spending 30 minutes to an hour per map, even if it's just a small scene. While I like the complex Forge, and you could add so many details, there are a lot of cool concepts that you can make with machinima with this, but there are times the simple scene is all you need, you know. Philosophy for animated should be the same for film. Only put in the film what you need, you know. And that's why, like, when you see, you know, cut scenes from like Halo in perspective, you see the characters skipping around and certain things appearing and disappearing. That's basically what they're talking about. And the same concept even goes for filmmaking. I mean, the sets are a little bit different because you can't just immediately change the set. But like characters, for example, if there's a character in the scene that's not in the scene but is in that same exact spot in the movie, and you're facing character A but not character B, and character B isn't in the background or anything, why would the personnel guy who's character B should be standing behind the camera anyway? You know, unless it's for, you know, emotional effects. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to put something you don't need in there, and that's just from the machinima perspective. And then going back to the elites, they have a sentimental value to me, a very sentimental value for me. First of all, the biggest one is that I'm a bit religious, alright? So we're elites. So I had an immediate connection. And because of that, when I was first introduced to Halo, the way I saw the elites is what got me into Halo. I'm Christian, and sometimes I viewed, you know, the way they viewed their honor and things like that almost on par with what I believed. And that's why I kind of became an elite player over the years. I enjoyed playing nothing but elites. As a matter of fact, at one point, I despised Spartans. The reason I came to like Spartans was because I got into the machinima, you know, districts, and I started designing cool designs. But elites, the way their honor and things like that were portrayed in their characters and how they played, how they fight, what it meant to be a muscle for an elite, you know, was something I looked up to in Halo, which was like removed completely. It's just gone. And I, you know, because, you know, the thing is, I formed my clans around elites as well. So, you know, there's that sentimental value. You know, Halo 4 and Halo 5, in their own rights, did okay. By no means was Halo 5 fantastic. Halo 4 was decent. But none of those two games that 343 created really hit the nostalgia I once had with previous Halos. And what I'm talking about is this bond I had between elites. And this could be said for anyone, any part of the community, with anything, even Master Chief himself, is that those games didn't try to replicate what we created fond memories from, for example, while doing something new. You know what I'm saying? Some people say Halo Reach was pushing the borders with sprint and things like that, but I didn't think it a problem. I thought it was pretty good the way they had that system, and Halo 4 had that, and I didn't mind it at all. I just think it was the way the mechanics or something went wrong. If Halo Infinite did return, you know, yeah, I would want armor abilities back if it was just for custom games, you know. For machinima purposes, again, power to the player. You know, a lot of things that previous games that Halo have, like features that are gone, you know, these people see these features gone. 343 may have not thought these features affected the community, but they do. in all sorts of ways. Like me, I'm an elite player and I'm a machinima director. Not having loadouts available for custom gains can affect how people spawn in my game, which affects machinima. Not being able to lower your weapons or walk properly affects the machinima. It also affects the quality of the gameplay if you're there just to play it. Not having elites upset people who want elites for clans, and people who want them for machinima, and people who just want them to play against them. Not having invasion removes the classic Spartan versus elite game mode that everybody really loved in Halo Reach. Dominion was even removed, and I felt the effects of that. I know it wasn't very popular, but Warzone to me could have been great if it had Dominion aspects. I mean, imagine Warzone if it had fortifications just like Dominion, and then it was also Elites versus Spartans with AI that actually would go around and try to capture your base instead of just stand there. Like, that's the one thing I hated about the AI in Warzone and Warzone Firefight. Most of the time, they just stood in one freaking place as you shot them. They wouldn't move around, especially in Firefight. They wouldn't come to you. Like, if you stayed on half of the part of the map, they wouldn't come to you on like previous Halos. That's one thing that's another thing that mentioned the effects that I felt. Like, at first I enjoyed the Firefight mode, especially in Defend Point A. I thought that was pretty cool, and I was like, oh, what's it going to be? Move over here and defend Generator? Occasionally that happens, and those modes I find okay, but then there's like the go out and kill crawlers. I'm like, what? I'm just like, and they just stand still. They don't move around and try to kill you. Like, there are times when I'm in the map, especially on that, I don't remember the name of the map for some reason. I haven't played Halo 5 in a minute. It's like it was a skirmish map or something. The Attack on Dark Star or something like that. But, like, there are times I find myself, like, where's the AI? Where's the AI? Because they don't move, and you have to guess where they are. And you kill so many of them, they're gone, And it affects the gameplay, the intensity of what I think a firefight should be. A firefight should be a constant lock of combat. Previous Halos managed to do that with brief breaks. But if you keep going, it's just combat. It doesn't stop. But in Warzone Firefight, it stops way too much, and even if you spawn, there's still no pressure. It doesn't recapture what I remember original Firefight being and what I think firefights are. So it affects me in that way. Campaign, I think 343 already knows. I don't need to really go over the campaign, but they need to be very cautious about that as well, and definitely Master Chief Focus. So, since I mentioned armor abilities, let's talk about Spartan abilities. How's that going to affect me? First of all, if they bring back the loadout options, abilities could reappear in that form for people who like them, But this is the one thing I'm going to say about Spartan abilities and loadout abilities from the previous Halos and Halo 5. I like the Octa Camo loadout. I like the Sprint loadout. I like the thing Halo 4 tried to do with like mobility and whatnot that helped me create characters who could run indefinitely and things like that. For me, in a machinima perspective, it allowed me to do a lot of creative things with Halo 4's machinimas because I had all these options, which were removed in Halo 5, and which I didn't have those many options in Halo Reach unless I made ability usage infinite for Sprint or something like that. But Halo 5 removed them altogether, so like my character Alice Dyer was pretty much destroyed. He was a character that was able to project holograms, which used the hologram ability, and a character that could go into active camo at any point in time.
No, it's not. That's the one from the top.
Which that was also removed, and the closest thing you can do is pick up, and you know how stupid it looks if you want your character to just fade out. If you see him just take that thing, push it on his chest, and it goes in. It looks stupid and not as menacing. It makes him look like he's reliant on this thing rather than before when he just disappeared out of nowhere, and his character is based around horror. It destroyed his character. This is another thing that affected me. Certain things that they removed. I know people complained about abilities, but you don't need to just straight up remove them. You know, they can exist in custom games. You know, like with the abilities, people, it's controversial. That's the thing. You know, sprint, ground pound, you know, all this stuff's controversial, but it is new. And people will welcome change, and some people won't welcome change. And when it comes to controversial things, you got to appeal to both sides. And how do you do that? Well, you have it in one area where it's not in the other. Perhaps maybe in competitive it's not there, but maybe in social it is. Or maybe just in custom games. You know, you got to think like that. You know, there's these custom games out there that are being made that do just that. There's actually one game where they said there are going to have Halo 5 elements and Halo 4 elements, but they're only going to be enabled for custom games because they want to try and not alienate those fans. Well, that's the thing they're doing different between 343 and these past two games, and then now, is the fact that, you know, they still put it in the game, but they put it in for that 1% of players. I mean, what's a game type you didn't see people playing a lot in Halo 3 or Halo Reach? VIP, right? Who remembers that game type? Not many people. I don't remember because I used it for a machinima a few times. VIP was that 1% gamer, and don't mind you, Race. Race was a game type at one point in time, and it was also removed. You know, what was it? VIP, Territories, Race, King of the Hill, Oddball. What was that one where it was everybody versus one, and if you killed the dude, you became Juggernaut? I haven't seen Juggernaut. I mean, Halo 5, you have the minigame mode to create it, but that's stupid. Why would you give us the tools to create it again when you could create it in the first place? A lot of the game modes and custom games we made revolved around those game modes existing in the first place. Like, for instance, Duck Hunt, Infection. People had to create an other ways to create Duck Hunt, and they used Slayer for it, you know. And you were supposed to change teams. Like, they did it classic Halo 2 style. And not having these certain game modes really do affect your community in so many different ways. It's almost important that these things are at launch. And I know you people probably hear this a lot, but those game modes need to be at launch. And again, all the same stuff that affects players' gameplay will affect me too. You know, what if I had a character that used Spartan Charge, but it's not in it for Machinima? Well, that character's suddenly destroyed, and if it's part of my lore, it's gone. See, the thing that previous Halos did, they always did something that added on to something rather than removed. Halo 4, it removed elites and various things. Halo 5, it removed even more. Halo Infinite, is it going to have what Halo Reach had plus more? Is it going to have Halo Reach's customization? Is it going to have elites plus customization? Is it going to have theater mode plus camera spanning? Is it going to have Forge plus dummy mods? Is it going to have basic building plus advanced building? Is it going to have classic firefight and Warzone firefight? Is it going to have Warzone and Invasion? You know, is it going to have, campaign, Spartan campaign score attack and all this different stuff? Is matchmaking going to have a social playlist with certain abilities enabled and a competitive playlist with certain abilities enabled, and vice versa, or turned around? Is it going to have those are my concerns. Like with Halo Infinite, I mean, I'm optimistic with it. I have no doubt that this time the game's going to actually be fun to play and continue to play, but I'm worried if they're going to have these things. And second of all, they're going to have all these game modes that Halo fans are used to, plus more. They need to create more. Like, for example, I didn't mind Breakout. I thought it was fun. It was different, and it was a pre-made game mode. While most certainly in previous games you could create it, there's certain features that are gone from Halo that prevent us from creating it ourselves, and like the life counter. In Halo 5, you could only do 1 or infinite. Like, what happened to doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? You could go up to 20 lives, I think it was, and then there's the 50 lives. Or no, it goes 20, then 40 lives, then 50 lives, and then 100, and then there was the infinite. I remember that. You can't do that anymore with game modes. So I even remember used to making infection modes where it was incredibly hard for the humans to survive, but the infected had a life counter. If they died too many times, they would cease to spawn, and the humans would actually win that way. I can't do that anymore unless it's 1 life, and if you die as the human, you won't spawn again. So, it kind of defeats the purpose. So I And I remember used to doing that with something I called Air Wars. Everybody spawned on a trench with, anti-air weapons and things like that, rocket launchers, had infinite ammo, and zombies would come on Banshees, and they'd have to kill as many humans as they could with the Banshee, and, players had to fend them off with a few rods and things like that, and then as they died, it added to the ranks, but the zombies had a limited number of lives at the same time, so if the humans fended off the raid, they'd win, but if not, the zombies would win, and time would be infinite, because it would be till either one faction died or the other, and it had some really great memories with that, and I believe I created the same game mode in Halo 4. I just never recorded it. And again, even for machinimas, if you wanted to do something of that perspective, you see, back in back in the day, if you wanted an accidental kill, measure, you, instead of having one life or 1 point till the game ends, you could set a few, there's an alternative way to do it, but this way, it was set that way, so if that person kept killing someone, they wouldn't respawn, or the person who got killed wouldn't respawn if you killed them enough times, preventing that person from being in the machinima, and while the rest of us could continue on. There was always a way around it. Another thing that's gone is custom power-ups. That's gone. That was the future, and it was removed. I believe even Halo Reach had it. Halo 4 removed it. Halo 5 didn't have it. And another thing that I missed from Halo 4 is their trait zones. Now, you're probably thinking, but you can use that with the minigame mode. That's true, but in Halo 5, you can only use it with the minigame mode. Like, if I wanted infection, and I wanted to where the humans had a spot where they could stand in infection, where they would not die if they stood in their spot, I cannot do that now. In Halo 4, I could. That's the feature that was removed that I wish was back, because it would work across all game modes, and it really wasn't glitchy. I didn't specifically didn't remember any glitchiness, and I would often use that for spawn protection and things like that, and in some cases machinima stuff, like it was even used to create AI in Halo 4. Looking players that look like AI, and you can't do that anymore either. See, that was an example of creativity that had been removed. And it also fucked up gameplay and everything and all this cool little stuff. There's a lot of things that even just removing that one thing changed. It was a change that I welcomed, and it was gone. It was. I would really love it back. So now that I made my point that every little thing that they remove, changed, could be, messed up and removed and gone. It's the thing. That's just a thing. Now, the one thing I didn't really want to talk about, I'm going to briefly talk about, is the microtransactions. Microtransactions, they confirm they're not doing loot crates, at least pay to win loot crates. They're not going to do it directly where you can spend cash on it. One Halo fan, I don't remember who said, made a very good comment. Are they going to do where you buy a currency which then buys the loot crates? I think that would be controversial, and it would end Halo's lifespan completely if they did that. But if I were to give them microtransactions on this shady topic, me personally, what would I find acceptable? That's how I'm going to say it. What do I think is actually user friendly and a way for 343 to make money? Well, for me, first off, skins. Marketing skins. Now, let me explain real quick, first of all. Skins and armor, I'm going to say. But I need to explain this. This was actually a post that I made, and a lot of people on Halo Waypoint that saw this post loved the idea. And it involved our customization options as well. This will only work if 343 brings back the ability to do helmets, attachments, shoulder attachments, chest attachments, legs attachments, knees attachments, and legs attachments, which the advisor and all that, we had a lot more options than Reach. I think there was 20 plus different options, you could use for customization, except for the elites. And if they bring this back, the elites can be used for the same thing, but they could do skins. I talked about what about damaged armor skins and things like that. Take a page from Star Wars Battlefront 2's skin system, where all the default characters, default, in this case Halo would be default armor, could be unlocked at the start, or is unlocked at the start. And if you want cool skin, like say there's an armor that's just simply a star on the shoulder, and you want that, you could get that through microtransactions or by playing a lot of the game. But the default armors, they come through unlocking achievements. For example, or they could do what Star Wars Battlefront 2 does, and all the characters are unlocked except for DLC characters, which you have to work up to unlock and whatnot. Yeah, and then the skins, cost. They could do things like that. Like for armor, that's what I would consider acceptable, as long as the default armors, like if we had default Helioscroll unlocked or something like that, or if they unlocked them through achievements, like say complete the campaign on Legendary and you get Helioscroll. Beat the campaign for the first time and get EVA. They could do something like that. Some sort of progression towards the armor. Otherwise, keep all the armor unlocked and just make the skins the thing. And maybe one or two of the skins for each set could be unlocked through achievements or something like that. But, that's the one way to do it. And if they do the microtransaction, no random shit, for instance, with the skin. If you're going to do that and you want microtransactions, be like, here's $5 for the skin. And you could pay that $5, but you're getting that skin. It may be a ridiculous amount of money. Hell, you could say $30 for that skin. But the thing is, if we know the price is $30 and we know what we're getting, then that's consumer friendly, I would say, as far as making money. And I wouldn't have a problem. I also wouldn't have a problem if they, still did Warzone. But they still need a way to get cool weapons in game. Like, it'd be okay if you could buy weapons, but there needs to be some sort of way you can get weapons in game that are powerful without, and I said in-game, not through playing the game a lot and getting points and buying it in the main menu. I'm talking when you're actually in-game, like drops come in or something that players can just run up to and get, Perhaps if a team is losing, it'll drop on the losing team's side to give them an edge, things like that, And again, it could be a Dominion style type, so fortifications, to help that enemy team fight off these overpower weapons. Turrets could spawn. That's another thing I missed from Dominion's turrets. But yeah, as far as microtransactions go, as long as there's no gambling, and if there is a gambling system, no money involved in that gambling system, kind of like Destiny 2's Gambit game mode, where you gamble your reputation rank rather than actual cash, which I think is better. But yeah, if you get the idea what I'm trying to say, as long as it's not something that eats people's pockets 24/7. One-time purchases was something you can constantly keep creating. I think 243 did okay with coming up with some crazy armor design. Some people are going to like that, and but they need to be careful how they go about it. And if that's one way they did it, what you see is what you get type of purchases, I wouldn't have a problem with it. If it's loot boxes, I'm going to be a little upset. I'm still going to play Halo Infinite. I said this once before, loot crates or not. I'm still buying Halo Infinite, but it's still going to work, man. And the same thing goes for the elites. Are they going to have this in? Are we going to be able to customize primary, secondary, and tertiary colors? That's a feature from Halo 3 we didn't have. Another thing that's gone is community screenshots. That's gone as well. I would love to see that back. On Halo Waypoint, you go there and you see it, but on the game itself, it's not there. Because of custom games browsers, I expect the custom game browser to be in Halo Infinite, Because Warzone is in Halo Infinite. I expect it in Halo 5, I expect it to be in Halo Infinite, etc., etc. All the features we've seen in previous Halo, I'm expecting to be in Halo Infinite, except maybe a very few select, That's like my concerns on Halo Infinite and whatnot. And going back to the machinima thing as my final bits of word, I like I said, I'm working on a machinima, and I'm at a debate whether to put it on the 3-in-1 channel or the Halo Stories channel, but I'm in a debate with Halo as to should I really continue working on this machinima, because if they're not going to add elites, it revolves around elites. I need them. If I put all this work into this script, and they're not here, you could kiss my dreams goodbye. I mean, it's actually the whole reason I started 301 was because the elites were gone. I couldn't do machinimas as much as I wanted to, so I left the machinima community. I even got depressed. If you go to Halo Story, I have a video that's based on depression. It's a machinima based on depression, and my life felt repetitive because, this stuff was gone. I mean, believe it or not, Halo for me was a life changer. I started not only playing Halo because I liked elites, but because I met people. And in school, I was partially bullied. And so when I went on Halo, that was my relief. And that's what Halo did for me, especially in the elite community. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and people accepted me there. It was like one of those things, and since that was gone, that part of me that made me feel accepted is gone. So, and that same feeling, the same nostalgia you get from around the group exists for everyone, for any part of the game. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, I think 343 previously was looking at the few and not the many, or the all. See, the previous Halos, I think, really did capture everyone's nostalgia just perfectly. They knew there were people who loved this little part of the game, and Bungie did not dare to remove that part of the game for the sake of keeping it as positive as possible. And it's a lot of work, to do that. But if 343 has learned anything from Infinite, they need to think about every group, not just one group. Like, there's a controversy currently going on, competitive players versus casual players. The answer of 343 is, what should you do? Look at both. That's the answer. Look at it all. Don't just be one-sided. I mean, you could, but then you're going to lose the other half. See, now you got classic fans and current Halo fans that want both things. What do? Both. You look at all of it. How do you do that? By putting it all in the game. Is it impossible? No. What could you do? Take more time, which is what you're apparently doing, and I hope that's the case, that you're actually doing just that. I'm going to be really upset if the game is very one-sided. Finished, maybe, but very one-sided for, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, maybe, because we might not hear it till 2020, and some are saying 2019. We don't know. Like, if I were to say anything, that's probably the number one thing I think 43 needs to look at, is how they're going to satisfy these little tiny groups. And the only way they're going to do that is by looking at past Halos, take those, make sure that's in the game, and then put what they want on top of it. I think that's the only way they're going to be able to do it. Oh man, that's a lot to say. I mean, I don't have usually very strong opinions about this stuff, but from that perspective, for me, it's just a sentimental reason as why I want these things back in. And yeah, that really does include the Flood, too. I didn't really mention the Flood. Hendrik Spear would probably like that. But, story-wise, it's not such of a problem, Like with Infection, if they brought back the Flood models as an option to turn them on or not, I think that would be cool. Halo 4 had that, and it was pretty cool. You could see what they're going for, but then they removed that. And I mean, in Halo MCC's version, if I remember correctly, you are a flood-infected Spartan. I would love to see that back, But right now, I'm really worried about the core game more than anything, and how it's going to affect me. And a lot of you should look at it like that. How is it going to affect you? What features have been removed or could be added to benefit you? Because those things that benefit you as a player are the things that make you buy, or the selling point. Like I said, for Halo, the selling point for this long running of series I've had since Halo 3 was the elites. Being gone now, I still don't know why I follow Halo. I kind of stopped playing Halo 5 altogether just because I got tired of playing as a Spartan. you know, and same thing, I don't go back to Halo 4 as much. But the funny thing is, I have more fun in Halo 4 than I do Halo 5, so I wouldn't mind playing another Halo 4 again, but that's beside the point. That's just my opinion. Everybody else differs, and everyone's allowed to have their own opinion, and I'm going to leave you guys off now by saying, you need to voice your opinion. Be constructive, though. Don't just sit there and say, 343 sucks. Tell them why they suck, and don't be like, they suck because they suck ass. No, that's not constructive. Be like, because this part of the game is boring. You can say things like that, and it would make it less boring if you did blank, you know. It's very important you voice your opinion. If you're another YouTuber and you loved Halo, it's important you say something, you know. Even if you never come back to the Halo series, everybody's information is important, you know. I miss what the Halo community was. It had its positive sides, it had its downsides, and it had its religious sides, and its Rule 34 sides. Your boy did not look that up for elites, just saying. Wink. I love elites. Okay, enough of that. Made it all awkward. But that shit did exist for fucking Halo back in the day. Nowadays, it's hardly that. The community is not that much anymore, and I think that's because there's not really a divide between the Halo fans anymore. Now it's the divide between developers and fans. So I think that connection needs to be reestablished, and I think if 343 really puts their heart into how they look at the community, I think they can pull this off. I really think they can. They got a lot of work ahead of them, though. It's not going to be easy, that's for sure. It never is with Halo. That's the number one thing, because Halo fans are very passionate about what they want. And, yeah, I remember a lot of times in Halo, both good and bad, and I just hope Halo Infinite tries to capture or create new ones, or do both. I would love it if it did both. But yeah, guys, so I am working on a machinima that hopefully I will be able to do. All I simply need is elites in the game. That's all I need with a working theater mode. That's it. I wouldn't care if lowering weapons were in it or not, but if it is cool, fantastic. But yeah, for me, that's the game breaker for me. And my biggest selling point, if they want me to really buy that game, is elites being in the game. Like, if I ever get a chance to ask them a conference press or whatever, or E3 for Halo Infinite, I'm gonna ask them, is elites gonna be in the game? I know I talk about elites all the time, and almost every video I do with Halo, I mention them in some form or way. It should be obvious by now, I'm an elite fan. Yeah, I'm just elites. Not really Covenant, just elites. I like the elites. I love Sordis and Helios too, so, yeah. Anyway, if you guys made it this far into the video hearing my concept, I know this was a really long video and I don't do scripts. This wasn't scripted, by the way. This was totally thought process. So if you thought this was very interesting, cool. Just letting you all know, I've got a Discord server. I haven't voiced it yet. I've been subtly mentioning it in the comments and the descriptions down below. This video, I'm just going to let you guys know there is a Discord link to my Discord server for the channel in the description below. If you want to come hang out with my boys and things like that on the channel, or that are on the channel, Gunslinger, Jet, Demon, me, and all that, and just people who are in our community in general, you could go down there. Everything should be ready to go, and I would also love your feedback on how Discord is going. Again, that will be in the description of this video if you guys would like to. It's the easiest way to get in contact with me anyway. I do check it every day, so it'd be a great place to do that. Or you could just comment your thoughts down below in the description, in the comment section if you want. And I would also really appreciate it if you hit the like button if you agreed with me in any part of this, and if you disagreed with me, you know, tell me what you disagreed with, because if 343 ever sees this video, they're probably going to be curious of what you guys think about my opinion, because I know they don't just blindly follow one YouTuber's opinion. They're going to look and see what everyone says. So again, important you mention your thoughts on the matter, or maybe what I said. Perhaps you agree, perhaps you disagree. Hey, it's just part of life, So, opinions mean everything. Whether you offend someone or not, it shouldn't bother you. Voice them. Voice your opinions. This is the one political thing I'm going to say. Never, ever let anyone run you into the ground, and voice your opinions firm. And most important of all, I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death for your right to say it. Remember that. I don't know why I got political there at the end. I just felt the need to say that, because I know some people are going to be like, but I'm scared to offend you, or something like that. If it offends me, so what? That's part of life. I hate that whole offensive trend that's going on. I just find it the stupidest thing ever. It doesn't mean anything if you get offended. It just means you're mad. That's literally all it means. But whatever. That's probably going to offend some people. It usually does. Anyway, guys, I'm getting way off track. If you guys did enjoy this video, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. This is Kogimente, signing out.
Marines, get in this freaking warthog! Hurry! Go, go, go! Move it, move it, move it! Get in the back here! Marines, get in the hog! Let's go, let's go! There we go! See, you just gotta give it a little T. Now gun those assholes down!